Hello again. This is, like I said, I'm doing back to back. That's why I'm still wearing the same shirt here.
Same music.
Same music.
Atmosphere.
Same atmosphere. So we're doing back to back episodes today, under a different under a different title, of course. I'm gonna put I Am the Imaginator / Dreamaker into part 7 when I load it up, and then 8, 9, and the next few episodes after that, which will be just Dreamaker. Okay, so what you know we're doing a transition from part 1 to part 2. As we discussed, I like to go on a lot of adventures. I didn't like being at the house. Even though my mom and dad were divorced and the fighting was stopped, it's still, I can't stand being around my sisters because they like to fight.
They were,
well, they always wanted to
they were goblins.
They were like, yeah, like little goblins. Especially Sherry, like a little goblin. Even though I dragged her along sometimes on our little hangouts with Marcia and Greg. But on one of my little trips, I came across an open field, and then I sat down on a rock and just gazed. I was gazing out into nothing, just in particular, just wondering what it would be like, and having a friend there with me out on my little adventure. But like I said, it wasn't every day. It's just ever so often I got the chance to hang out with my cousins and my sister. We can go out to malls and stuff and just kind of do stuff. But in between times, it was just me. Like I said, they were my hangouts. I didn't have nobody else to hang out with. So when I wasn't hanging out with them, it was just me in my room or me out in the middle of the woods, hanging around doing stuff. And of course, on this particular day, I got a little sad. I was just kind of emotional. I got a little emotional. And my eyes kind of watered up a little bit. So I stood up and I brushed myself off and just kind of shook it off and said, well, it is what it is. And I continued off into the woods. And when I got back home, I thought back to that moment in the open field on the rock. And the sad man came to mind. That was the inspiration to that poem. The sad man was me in the open field, sitting on a rock, out in the middle of nowhere in the woods, just wondering, what would like to be have some friends with me at that moment in time. I was just thinking, recollecting my life in general, and how lonely it was, because we jumped around a lot. We didn't really have any meaningful friends because we have 2 years here, 2 years there, 2 years there. Bryant was the only place where we actually settled down, and I actually got 4.5 years in Bryant because I had to finish off in Bed and Harmony Grove because I was explaining to this incident later on in the episode in my story, that little incident that happened between me and Sherry, and it was a very volatile situation, and Dad decided to keep me out. But we'll cover that ground later. But anyway, I was out walking and came across this rock, this field, got emotional, and this poem came to mind, A Sad Man.
Another poem. Here we go.
In an open field, all alone, he ponders a thought of happiness. But he can't find what he doesn't have. He still feels forgotten and abandoned. Somehow, some way, he moves onward. He comes upon a large flat rock. Wanting to rest his feet, he sits down, gazing out into nowhere. The sun's rays beaming upon his face, and a light wind blows ever so lightly. His eyes begin to water a bit as he bows his head and begins to cry. The teardrops form a puddle at his feet. He stays on his rock a moment or two more. Standing abruptly to his aching feet, he begins to wander back into the woods. The clouds begin to form above, as a clap of thunder sounds. The sad man reaches the woodline. The rain begins, and he disappears from sight.
Sounds like kind of like a ghost story.
Yeah, it does, don't it? It sounds kind of eerie, kind of ghostly, but of course you have the sad poems, and then you have the angry poems. This one coming up, though, it would make you question my sanity. You know, you thought Walk of Death was kind of creepy and dark, or a psycho in a cage. Meditation is far worse. It was one of the darkest poems I would write other than Walk of Death. Of course, I had a bad day. I'm in trouble for something else started. The night at home was not pleasing. So it was just rough. You know, I was just in a really irritated mood. So I go outside and I sit in an old wooden chair outside. I just sit there and I fume with anger. And the more I sit there, the angrier I got. Think about all the crap I've been through and all the crap I'm going through now. It was dark. It was dark outside. And then it the darkness just kind of engulfed me. And I began to envision horrible things, as if I were meditating about revenge, which I kind of wanted, but I know revenge is not the best way to go, so that's why I do this. The more these thoughts came to me, the more distressed I would become. And the more distressed I would become, the more I would just tense and shiver and begin to get chills. My eyes would water up, and eventually I would calm myself back down a little bit. I'd have to try to clear my head out. I sit there long enough. These thoughts, they kind of haunted me from outside the chair of a very dark night. And then I sat down. When I got back inside, I went straight to my room. And then I sat down and wrote what went through my mind. What you're about to hear is everything I sat there in that chair and thought about. Because that's how angry that's how bad I was, and how angry, all that anger was just built up. And it's kind of creepy. But like I said, it was better to write this stuff down than actually go out and act upon how I felt. If I acted upon how I felt, I'd probably be in prison on death row or something. That's not where I wanted to be, because that's how pissed off I was. Meditation.
That's why I suggest you don't go do a desk job, because there's horrible customers sometimes.
Yeah, I'm just not very much of a people person anymore. But meditation is what came out of this. That night I sat in a chair and started out in the darkness. Of course, when you're surrounding yourself with darkness and a night air and you're pissed off, you're going to get bad thoughts, because there's no light there. It's just dark. This is everything that went on my head that night. I alone in the darkness of the night, sitting under the stars in a cold chair, shivering all over, but no care at all. I'm still. I don't move. I don't even look around. Instead, I stare straight ahead. I'm not afraid. The woods surround me. In meditation, I feel completely desolate. My eyes are watering with total anger. My veins pulse as my body is tense. I begin to shake and then to sweat. A man walks cockily up to me. I proceed to pummel him to death. The man's body lays on the ground. I head back home and lie on my bed. I begin meditating yet again. The next day, I'm in a vicious fight. My foe was taken to the emergency room. His clothes were all but blood-soaked. I'm sitting on a bus now, heading, doesn't matter. What does matter is I'm meditating once more. Dad, you okay? Dad?
You can't even. Oh,
I know, right? All right. It's like I said, it was dark. That's everything went through my mind when I was sitting in that chair. That's everything I was sitting, And of course, like I said, I'm trying to get away from the anger poems, and I'm beginning to write more poems about sad and loneliness. And another poem coming up is another poem about being lonely. And of course, when you feel like you're the only person that's out there that's ever thought about being lonely or thought about you're the only one that could be going through all this mess, you're not. There are many people out there that go through the same shit. They're lonely, they're depressed, they're angry, they're frustrated, they're annoyed. Some have indeed acted upon how they felt and ended up in jail and in prison. Some have put themselves 6 feet under the ground. Some have killed themselves, committed suicide. So if you ever start to think that you're the only one that's feels neglected and desolated or isolated and you have no friends, no one to talk to, and it don't. Because you're not the only one. There's a bunch of them out there. There's many of them out there. And that's what this is. There's a little prologue to it. It says, depending on the mood I was in, depending on the poem that I was, that was born. On this particular moment, the poem is about loneliness. I was feeling lonely. And I mentioned it was one of a few peaceful times during my childhood, but I still felt empty and wondering if I were the only one that felt this way. I derived a scene of several individuals sitting under the night sky wishing and dreaming of something better to do. And this private club I envisioned became known as the Lonely People. Yeah. So you just create a group of lonely people. And if you do that in real life, that's a good deal, because you guys can sit there and talk and communicate and actually spend some time together. Physically. Not on the Xbox.
So you made an email group.
But no, this one here is it's called The Lonely People, and that's about being lonely. But not by yourself. You have your contingent of friends that are with you. We're alone, but no one else seems to understand why. All we have is our dreams. A dream of a friend, a home, a family that's content and happy. A dream of anything that can distract our minds from loneliness. A dream of us on a huge hill and our eyes feeling funny, different, and a teardrop falls. The people down below wonder, but the puddle does something to them. For a short moment, they will understand why the teardrops are falling. That short moment, and they turn and walk away. A few, however, return and reach out to the lonely people. Us lonely people fighting tense mental battles and retreating back into another dream. It is dark out here under the quiet night sky as we all sit and gaze at the stars. The night slowly passes through and there's usually something better to do. All right. This one here is considered Arkansas's most notorious murder mystery. Most notorious crime spree. It was very violent, and I knew 2 of the kids that were murdered or involved in this crime spree. Just 2 weeks following the event, just 2 weeks prior to the following events, I was spending time at a friend's house. One of the boys was there. That's Don. We weren't the best of friends, but we did go to school together. Him and Kevin was the other teenager that was involved in this. We had somewhat of a mutual respect for one another. And night was calm, and me and Don were sitting in Harris' friend's house, and we found this little knickknacks. And it was boring, and we just wanted something to do, so we started tossing the knickknacks back and forth to each other, trying to miss. So many times we can miss. So many times we can toss it back before it actually collided. Yeah, we done it. We done it several times, and then finally they collided. And so we said, "Oops!" We grabbed the knickknacks and we threw it behind the shelf so nobody could see it and hit it. Kind of hid the damage we done.
So you broke stuff too when you were a kid?
Yeah, but that was the last time that was the first and only time I actually hung out with Don. Him and Kevin went down we're out cruising one night and were told about a field, an illegal field, and they wanted to go check it out. So they came back and told their parents that we're going to go. They got the 22s and they're going to go hunt and went down the tracks. And that's the last time their parents saw them alive. It was a calm night, and I woke up about 2 o'clock in the morning. And the train was right beside the train tracks. And usually when the train comes by, it blows its horns a little bit before it got to the little subdivision where I lived. But this time, instead of a few seconds, it just kept blowing the horn and kept blowing the horn and kept blowing the horn. It just bared down on the horn, and nobody understood why. Well, he kind of found out that morning. He found out why. There were 2 teenagers that were killed on the tracks.
Yep, I heard about that.
Yeah, everybody's heard about it. And I knew both of them. One was 17, one was 16. What happened when they went out there and came upon a deal that was in the process, and they saw something they weren't supposed to see. And they tried to escape, and they were caught and then brought back, and they were taken out. No witnesses.
By the Clintons.
No, they weren't there actually.
I think it was the Clintons.
But no, they gave the order. One of them did. We don't know which one gave the someone in the higher ups gave the order. A lot of law enforcement there. A lot of drug cartel were there. A lot of people were there that were supposed to be protectors of the community, but they were
paid.
They were
paid actors. Basically.
They were doing a drug deal. That's what it was. Well, the first doctor said it was a freak accident. That they had smoked so much pot that they fell asleep on the tracks and couldn't hear the train coming. But anybody, the the Ives mother wasn't satisfied with that, so she brought it back up and hired another doctor and fired that one. They re-exposed the body and found out there was trauma to the boys before the train hit them, which gives the indication they were actually killed before they were laid on the tracks.
Basically, fake doctor versus real doctor.
Well, the doctor was paid off. So, they tried to burn the evidence in the field. Well, I used to walk, by the way. So that's kind of creepy. As the case began to get recognition, people were called to testify. And one guy was killed in his own garage, stabbed to death. And another teenager that went to school at Bryant, he witnessed it. And he was killed as well because he saw what happened. I think 3-4 other people were murdered or assassinated, so to speak, because they were going to tell and explain and then, spill the beans. Anybody that threatened to testify was killed. I think it ended up being about 6 people, other than the Ive and Henry boys that were. So it ended up being about 8 people altogether killed.
And that's why if you're going to testify, you do it anonymously.
Yeah. So I don't like talking about it because, so I'm trying to be discreet about it. But it did happen. I knew the boys personally. I knew both of them. I know some of the law enforcement ended up losing their job. They were fired. An attorney ended up going to prison. A bodyguard came out many years later and told the truth, and I hadn't heard nothing about it. Hadn't heard nothing from him since.
He's probably dead or in hiding.
He was probably dead or he's in hiding. Yeah.
Hopefully in hiding.
Well, he had cancer, so he was dying anyway. So it didn't matter. He just felt the truth needed to be known.
He kept you alive, bitch.
Yeah. But anyway, at their funerals, both of them drew an estimated crowd of over 500. Basically, the entire Bryan High School went to their funerals. I didn't have the transportation. I didn't have transportation or the license at the time to go, so I sat on the porch and just recollected what transpired, wishing I could pay my respects. So I figured I'd pay my respects to a poem, since I was not able to attend the funerals. But to this day, it still remains one of the most notorious crime sprees in Arkansas history.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the poem I wrote about them, because, I wasn't able to attend the funeral. So this is my contribution. This is my ode to them. This out of respect. It's called The Triumphant. The poem itself is called The Triumphant. So we're going to read this poem and move on past this, because that was a dark history. That's a dark moment in the Bryan area, because it was real. It was hard to get over. It took years to get over that. It took years. So here's The Triumphant. Sitting in my chair in the front yard of my home, sitting there deep in emotion, I have no tears, just watery eyes, feeling hurt and angered at the same time. I'm left wondering what happened, what went wrong. The train came and 2 friends are gone. A feeling would come over me as though I'm being watched. I stand up and look about me. I, for some reason, look toward the sky. I see the 2 friends smiling at me, wearing white robes as they float freely above. A train's whistle blows. I look toward the tracks, gazing and at ease, for I now know what went wrong. I now know nothing went wrong. The train came and simply set them free. Like that one? Simply set them free. It's just set them free because I think, if I remember correctly, one of them was barely hanging on. He was still alive. One of them was already dead, and that's why they covered him up with a tarp. But one of them was barely alive on the train. So when the train came and set them free, it set them free. It put their souls. It set their souls free.
Yeah.
So because one soul was waiting for the other, and and then the train came and just took both their souls, and of course it set them free. Like I said, the
Trains
case.
need a way to detect things on the tracks.
Well, the case went on for almost. It wouldn't. The Ives' mother would not let it go silent. She pressed and pressed for almost 10 years. For almost 10, even after I graduated high school, she continued to press for justice. But after about 10 years, the case sort of went dead, so it went silent. It gets brought up every now and then over the internet, the YouTube, Facebook, other videos.
It got brought up a few years ago. I know that.
Huh?
I learned about it.
Yeah, it's on the internet somewhere. Just look on you want to read more depth into it, go look up the boys on the tracks. And there you have it. You read all about it. But we're going to get past that part of it, since it was a pointless murder. They're only 16, 17 years old. There's no reason for them to die.
They saw something they shouldn't have.
They saw something they shouldn't have.
And they didn't want to get caught doing that specific thing.
Yeah, so, in other words, don't go looking for trouble.
They weren't though.
Well, they weren't looking for trouble, but if,
they're just walking the tracks.
You do something like that. Well, they were told about the field and they were going to check it out. Well, the field's there for a reason. They had to stay the hell away from it. Stay away from it. No one knows about it, and it's an illegal field. You got to know that field's being watched, being guarded, being protected. But what happened happened. What happened happened, and you can't go back and change it. I mean, you can't go back and then tell them not to go.
Justice will be served.
Well, it goes without saying, and curiosity does indeed kill the cat. I mean, that's not just a saying. It actually originated from somewhere in history, somewhere down the line that
justice will be served eventually.
Yeah, it did.
Either in this life or the
next. It got served to an extent. Like I said, several law enforcement officers ended up losing their jobs. They were. I think some of them did prison time. The attorney went to prison.
The attorney went to prison?
An attorney went to prison. Of course, they didn't catch him on that. They caught him on something else, but they did get. They
knew he did it, but
they knew he was involved, but they had to find something else to give him to prison on and ruin his career.
Just like they did it with Al Capone.
Yeah. So someone's guilty, and you can't get him on on
that specific crime. You get him on this, and you
find something else to get him on, and that's what they did.
And they give him a full.
Well, they kept pushing and pushing and putting, and then it finally got him on the crime that finally got him on something else and put him in prison. I'm not sure how much time. I'm not sure how much time he spent in prison, but he spent a little bit of time in prison.
And now he's probably known as a criminal.
Well, he's probably old age now. He's probably dead and passed away. Well, he was in his 50s when this happened. So he's probably 60, 70. I don't know if he's still alive or not. I moved away from Bryant 10 years ago. Bryant area. Moved up here to Mountain Home, Arkansas area. Northern Arkansas is where I'm at now. But there's some dark areas. We're going to try to get back to some light areas now, because we got through that part of it. So I don't like nervous
talk. Both light and
well, you can't get nervous talk about that part, because you never
doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good. You don't like talking about it. But it is something that happened in your life, and you have to cover that part of your story. If you're covering your story, you're covering your life story. Covering your life story, you have to cover everything that's happened to you throughout your lifetime, and that was a major happening. But we're going to cover this poem here. Kind of get back to the lighter side of things. Everybody goes down the highway, right? Everybody drives down the highway. As you're doing your travelings, as you're going down the highway, you always look off to the right, to the left, and see what's going on in the houses and the the buildings and the stores and the restaurants. Watch people as you go through there, and you always see this one particular dude. It's an old guy in a rocking chair. Every highway you go down, every road you travel, there's always this old guy sitting on his front porch in his rocking chair, rocking back and forth. And every time you drive by, he waves at you. Hello, how you doing? Hi, how you? That's all he does.
SCP based off of that.
Huh?
Pretty sure an SCP based off of that.
But that's all he does. He sits in a rocking chair and he watches traffic. And he waves at you, and you wave back. And you carry on. So, I made a poem out of it. It's real short. There's only a few lines. It's not very long. It's about 6 lines. It's a 6-line stanza. Of course, I'm using iambic pentameter. If you know the iambic pentameter, you'll know the rhyme scheme I'm using here. Like I said, it's short, cute. It's not real cheesy. It's just, you can see the guy sitting in his rocking chair. And they say in his poems, when you write poems, you want to write, a poem that has 3, 4, 5 word title. I do one-word titles because sometimes it leads up to mystery until you actually read the poem. And meditation was a one-word title. Rocker.
I saw a title that was 7 words long before.
Yeah, and rocker is just a one-word title. And that's what this poem is. It's called Rocker.
I'll give what it was though.
He sits in his favorite chair. He goes back, then comes forward. Slowly the pace quickens, and soon becomes a steady pace. He waves from his front porch as a car passes by. Short, simple, to the point. And you can see it just in those 6 stanzas. And a guy actually sitting on a chair, rocking back and forth. Car comes passing by, he waves at him. And that's all he does the entire day. Nothing more, nothing less than a guy in a rocking chair. And I think we'll wrap it up here. It's about 34 minutes. I try to keep them about 34 to 40 minutes. 34 to 40 minutes. But I wanted to get that last poem in and get off the dark subject, so we can move on to something lighter. So, we'll see you again soon for the next episode. Until then, we'll see you later, and take care.